Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another rendition of Cut the BS live in the Game On Wisconsin studios. As always, back this week. Had a little bit of a head cold last week. Don't worry, just a head cold, no COVID. I am your host, Brandon. You can go ahead and follow me on Twitter at Brandon_Snide. Also, don't forget to follow Game On Wisconsin at Game On WI on Facebook, on Twitter. And I think Haley is getting a TikTok going, or she may already have a TikTok going. But anyway, thank you guys for tuning in for another jam-packed episode. Very, very excited for you guys to be tuning in. If you are on the live stream, good evening. Happy Thursday. I know football is about to kick off, but put that on mute. Put us on the loudspeaker and enjoy some Wisconsin sports talk. If you're listening on your smart device, wherever you may get your podcasts, and don't forget, we are wherever you can get podcasts. I hope you are doing fantastic out there. And thank you, as always, for giving my show a listen. I cannot tell you what it means to you, what it means to me to be doing a show talking about my favorite teams. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. And tonight I'm joined by a special guest. If his handsome face looks familiar, it should, because you should be able to find him every Monday around 7 p.m. He's the host, the creator of the Freezer podcast, one of my favorite Packers podcasts out there, and just a phenomenal guy. You can follow him on Twitter. I got to get your Twitter thing up there. There it is. Anyway, welcome to another show of Cut the BS. Again, we are sponsored by Artec Ventures. The goal at Artec Ventures is to collaborate closely with founders throughout all the investment and fundraising stages, turning their visions into successful companies. Since 2020, Artec Ventures has helped turn great ideas into profitable businesses that make an impact on industries, communities, and beyond. For more information, visit artecventures.com. Sanjay, what's going on, man? Welcome to Cut the BS. How you doing?
Hey, awesome. Thank you for having me. This is a great honor to be on with you.
We are here. We're going to talk some Packers. We're going to talk some Bucks. Finally, some Bucks talk on Game On Wisconsin. If you follow Game On Wisconsin, it's such a great network. But we're going to talk some Bucks. We're going to dip our toes into the NBA world and break down some current standings, how the Bucks look, some outlook, injuries, all the good stuff. But we are going to start with the Packers and coming up against the Chicago Bears, playing Sunday at Lambeau Field, Sunday night. I was really hoping they would flex out of that game. I hate Sunday night games. But anyway, it is rivalry week. I have rivalry in quotations there because I don't know if it is a rivalry. How are you feeling ahead of Packers and Bears?
It might be just considered ownage week, I guess, or
yeah.
I mean, maybe Aaron Rodgers would like to call it that. I'm on the opposite. Maybe I'm a little bit different because I'm getting older now. I have a kid, and it's like now my sleep cycle is a little bit different now with evening games. But I love Sunday night football as far as Packers Bears, just because it's just it's under the lights. It's Lambeau. It is, regardless if we trounce them or not. I think. We've had some really good battles, obviously, in the Urlacher Briggs days where it was like, it was a tough one, or even just recently too, when, Khalil Mack came into town and, had a huge game, and then we know how it turned around after the halftime. But, it's cool just to see it under the lights. I think this is what the NFL needs, is the oldest rivalry in sports. And, I think it is what kind of, defines football. I feel like it's Lambeau, it's Hallis, it is football, really. I mean, that's kind of my thought on it. But yeah, as I do agree, as I'm getting a little bit older though, I do kind of, if it was Sunday night football, maybe start it at like 5 or 6, maybe. I mean, just as people are getting home instead of 8, or 7. So otherwise though, I do enjoy it.
I liked Sunday night football when I lived in Colorado, because then it was like, I think 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock.
There you go. Or I just have to move out west, is basically.
Yeah, I see. I'm old. I don't know if maybe I'm old school. I think every game should be played at noon. Like every game played at noon. I want to wake up. I want to, go to church, have some coffee, come home and get the game on and have the game on. Sunday night games are fun. You're right. It's tradition. It's the 204th meeting between the Packers and the Bears, and going all the way back to the 20s, and
the anticipation kills you though, doesn't it?
It kills me, dude. Like all day.
I do agree with that.
I'm watching the first set of games, and that's fine. And then you get into the second games and you're like, I'm starting to watch
You're
the
like
clock
looking
a
at your
little
clock.
bit.
Yeah.
And especially when it's like a rivalry game, with the Chicago Bears. And that's what I wanted to ask you when the line first came out, the Vegas line. It was the Packers were favored by 13. I know the Bears suck. Like, they're 4-8. They're struggling at the quarterback position. Justin Fields is hurt. He's obviously going to be the starter. I believe he was named the starter. They have a lot of moving pieces on that defensive side of the ball that may or may not play. We don't know yet. Akeem Hicks is the most notable one. Is 13 points too high? I mean, for me it is, and I'll let you dive into it. But what are your thoughts on that spread?
I feel like Vegas doesn't watch our offense a lot, just based on the struggles that we've had in the red zone. Right. I feel like we haven't really scratched 30 points really often, other than in a desperation game against Minnesota, and that was even a loss. I think it's to answer your question, yes, I do think it's a little bit too much. Now we've obviously heard that Fields is back. Allen Robinson has just declared that he would like to play, expects himself to play on Sunday. And David Montgomery was not there the first time, and he is there with Khalil Herbert. That is a nice little 1-2 punch that they could possibly have. So yeah, I do believe that it's a different game. And obviously, yes, this defense has really, held its own for the most part. And I feel like every week I'm just kind of like, when are you going to show me the real rush defense that I've seen in the past? Like, I just feel like something's going to happen at some point where we're just going to see. I mean, maybe Joe Barry's defense is for real. And it's week 12 by now. It should be, right? Like, I do think it's obviously shown, but I do feel like sometimes, especially in these division games where opponents know each other or coaches know, defenses and whatever you want to say, I think it gets to a point where sometimes they start to figure out a little bit of like what you are trying to do. Right. But I do still believe on paper the better the better team is obviously the Green Bay Packers. But yes, 13 points may be a little bit too. I think 10 would have been like a comfortable.
I could see that. Yeah,
maybe 8.5. I guess. Like, if
I like 8.5. I like 8.5.
7 to 10 would be I feel like a more comfortable one for a betting person. I'm not touching that. I'd probably take the Bears to cover. Honestly,
and so. Well, we're just going to throw his name out there because I was talking with Jacob today, and he said 42-10 won't even be close. And I'm like, there's a couple things with this game. Obviously, the Packers are the better team. Like you said, on paper, you got the better quarterback, the better coach, the better defense, the better receivers. You're better than them at pretty much every position. But you've won the Packers, that is. They've won 20 out of the last 23 matchups. I don't want to say like a team is due for a win or, a turnaround, but eventually they're going to find a win. Everybody, right. I mean, the Lions squeezed one out against the Vikings on Sunday night or Sunday afternoon. 13 just seems really high because I think people also forget in week 6, that was a closer game than a lot of people remember. Packers obviously won, I believe, 24-14, but Aaron Rodgers scored a touchdown. It was late in that game. I think within like 3 or 4 minutes left in that fourth quarter, the Packers were only up by 3. So it was, and like you said, David Montgomery wasn't in there. Justin Fields was only making, I believe, his third start. I think it was his third start only. Right. Now, obviously, he's missed the last few weeks with the rib injury, and they're coming in. And the other thing is the Bears have nothing to play for. And that's what scares me with teams like that because they have nothing to lose. You're probably going to see a new head coach. You're probably going to see maybe a new GM. There's going to be a rebuilding stage with the Chicago Bears team. This is their Super Bowl, Sanjay. This is it. Like, this is this is everything. If you don't think that I still own you, and I loved what he said, and he owned up to it again. I think it was yesterday. When he was asked at his press conference post practice, and he's right. Like, they've won the last 20 out of 23 games. I mean, he's right. He does own them, but that could also be used against him Sunday night. Now, I'm not saying the Bears are going to beat the Packers, but the Packers are 0-5 in the last 5 years coming off of a bye week. Is it worrisome? There's a couple fluky games there. It's a good question. I mean, maybe they've struggled being off for a few weeks. We saw Aaron Rodgers when he missed the Kansas City game that next week when he came back against Seattle, he hadn't practiced or was around the team for 2 weeks, and he struggled. I mean, he didn't look very good. And obviously he's not practicing because of the toe injury this week. So, I mean, there's a couple questions surrounding that matchup. But I couldn't agree with you anymore. I think 7-10 would have been great. As soon as I saw 13, and I saw it as soon as Matt Schneidman tweeted it out, I put my head down and I said, that is way too high. That is just way too high. The Packers are dealing with all their injuries as well. We still aren't going to see David Bakhtiari. We're not going to see Zadarius Smith. I'm not sure about Jair Alexander. I can't imagine he would play this week. Right. So, you're kind of looking at the same team that the Packers had in week 6 minus Elton Jenkins, but that's a big deal when you got Robert Quinn on the other side of the ball.
Right. Yeah. It is interesting because, like you mentioned, there's a lot of motivation. Yeah. You said that there's not a lot to lose and there's not a lot to play for, but their own dignity and their pride is what they're going to go. I mean, this guy literally came into your town and said he owned you, and you got to hear it all throughout the media all week. Like, oh, this is hilarious. It's true. It's, it's factual. It's not any kind of BS. And it's like, that's a chip on your shoulder. You don't want to just be disrespected like that and then feel like, okay, wait. We do have a time to answer back. And that's when we go into Lambeau and we can maybe shock the world and say, look, you don't own us as much as you think you do. So it is a little bit of a motivational kind of thing for Chicago. It's a big thing for Matt Nagy because his job is basically on the line no matter what. And I feel like 99% of the reason that Chicago Bears coaches are hired is just to beat us. So you're right again. It's another Super Bowl kind of kind of feel for, the Bears. So we'll see how it kind of plays out, obviously, in the game. But I do think there's a part of me that thinks Jacob is right, where it's like, if this team figures out how to play offense consistently in the red zone and learns how to get back to the gold zone, this team definitely can score 42 points. They have all the tools to do it. But we've seen this team, like Lambeau Labo said, that doesn't play to its potential sometimes, and it plays down to its opponents. And then you see them a little bit more of a, grinded out game, in the trenches, and you're just trying to figure out who's going to get the first score, because that might be the score that, changes the tide.
Yeah, and this is, especially if you're watching the show live, number one, thank you. Number two, if the Vikings lose tonight, the Packers have the ability to clinch the NFC North on Sunday.
A lot of eyes on this game tonight.
There's a lot of eyes in the state of Wisconsin and Packer Nation. And Packer Nation that's going to pay attention to this game. Speaking of Aaron Rodgers, he does own the Bears. He might own the NFL. Sanjay, do you think that Aaron Rodgers can win the MVP this year, given all that has happened this year so far? I mean, really, since the beginning of April or the end of April, and then obviously the COVID stuff. Do you think he can win the MVP?
Brandon, you and I are now considered the media, right? Like we talk about a team. Now we don't talk on the same scale as like a Skip Bayless or Colin Cowherd, but we still talk about a guy and his performance and his drama and his offseason and all that stuff. I think that weighs in on decisions like that for some writers. I mean, let's just be honest. There's bias to it. Like, oh, I don't like this guy, I'm not going to give him my vote. Or, hey, he might be statistically the better quarterback, I'm just not going to vote him because I like this guy more. What Brady is doing, I think it's interesting because, yes, he has a lot of touchdowns. He still has more picks. And it seems like, okay, when you have that kind of construct of a team, you should be able to do that. Now, granted, the same thing could be said for Aaron Rodgers. The construct of our team is pretty nice too, but we've had also more serious injuries. I don't think there's really anything outside of AB, who's a nutcase, and then Gronk, who obviously had the back issue, and you can see what he means to that team. And obviously their corners. I know that was the secondary is kind of a weird question mark, but I just don't know what it's going to take for Rodgers to, like, does he finish out in the 5 games with 12 touchdowns and, 0 picks? Cause I think what is his December, January stats, it's like 17 touchdowns to 1 interception in the last 2 years or something like that. Or maybe it was, I forget if it was the last year or the last 2 years, but it's just nuts. It's absolutely nuts. So he has the capability of doing it. The schedule says he has the capability of doing it based on who we have as opponents. And I would never count him out. I would never count out the possibility for him just to make this ridiculous run. I just don't know if he has the votes based on his offseason antics, about his stance on COVID, and the vaccine. I hate that it's about that, because
Yeah.
it should just be based on the field production and what he means to the team, because that's what it means, most valuable player. But it's Aaron Rodgers, man. He is the best talent there is as a quarterback. Brady's got all the accolades, but he ain't the same guy. I think it's basically Rodgers and Mahomes, and that's really it. I really don't see anybody close. I mean, you can say certain people have certain talents with the ball, here and there, but it's just those two in my opinion. And I even think Mahomes is kind of going on the downhill, because he's just so off kilter with his throws that sometimes his mechanics goes out the window. But that's another conversation for another time. But to answer your question, I do think he could.
Yeah, and I know he went on the Pat McAfee show and he said, I think Pat McAfee asked him straight up, do you think you could win another MVP? And Aaron Rodgers really didn't hesitate. He said no. And obviously that's coming from how the media is portraying his COVID stance, and obviously I don't think it was so much the offseason. It obviously brought negative attention to the organization and the team and Brian Gutekunst and he's slipping my name, the Packers president, Mark Murphy. So it brought negative attention to them. But yeah, you're right. When you look at the MVP race, it's kind of one of those weird years where nobody's really taken the reins, so to speak, of the MVP. Kyler Murray had a lead on it maybe in the first month and a half or so of the season, and then obviously he
sounds like Russell Wilson. It sounds like Russell Wilson.
It really does, though. I mean, it
always looks hot. Yeah,
it always comes out really strong, and then October hits, and you travel to different teams. The weather changes, and it kind of switches gears. Speaking of, though, and this is getting way off topic, if you get Kyler Murray in Lambeau Field in January, if you saw him in Chicago during the rain, he can't hold on to a football.
Yeah, man.
So
little hands, little guy.
I mean, I'm just saying, maybe that seeding is important. I don't know, but it should be about football. And if it's about football, Aaron Rodgers, given all the injuries on this team now, I understand that he doesn't play defense. But my God, I mean, multiple All-Pro guys out. I put Elton Jenkins into that All-Pro conversation. I believe, I know he's not technically an All-Pro, but he could probably be if he could solidify at one position. He's always playing 3 or 4 different roles on that offensive line every year. So you lose 2 All-Pro offensive linemen. You lose your starting center in Josh Myers, who started off pretty good, had his moments as a rookie, and then on the other side of the ball, obviously Zadarius Smith and Jair Alexander and Kenny Clark missed a little bit.
The Cardinal game was his resume.
And that should have been 100%. You don't even have you're down to 3 and 4.
That was the game.
and that's what's upsetting. And I agree with you that the writers that do the voting, obviously they haven't gotten Leroy Butler into the Hall of Fame, which is a travesty in its own words, but you can't focus on just football. They're going to obviously look at what happened with the COVID stuff. And I think that's ultimately going to probably prevent him from winning an MVP. I think he should be the MVP. 23 touchdowns, the 4 interceptions. Nothing.
3 rushing touchdowns. Let's not forget that.
You're right. Good point. But it's not like what he did last year. Obviously, last year was a little bit different. He missed a game this year. He's been battling with a toe injury all year, or not all year.
The offense has just not been the same since
it hasn't. And it's one of those. It feels like 2019 with that offense. It just does, like where they're there. Yeah, there's moments.
Right.
And then it goes away. And then you get down in that, like you said, that red zone, and it just, they lose it. And I don't know what it is. It feels like what 2019 felt, where they would get down, they would move the ball with ease, and they just couldn't put it in the end zone. But we'll see. I think it's probably Tom Brady's year, 4 touchdowns last week. It's amazing what that guy's been. I used to hate Tom Brady, and now I kind of have to respect him. I kind of like him. I'm sorry to admit it. I'm starting to like Tom Brady a lot.
Oh yeah, it's weird. Let me throw this at you. And this is and I don't want to get too off topic, but no,
shoot it.
I heard this somewhere on some show, but what is the impact if Tom Brady does win this MVP? How it changes the scale for all the quarterbacks, especially guys like Rodgers or Wilson, that are older but are testing time and just showing that, look, don't give up on me. We're in the same offseason where we were what's our future? Like, okay, can we pay this guy long term?
That's a good point.
Did we draft Jordan Love too early? Like, because I mean, he's defying odds too. Like, I was never against the Jordan Love pick based on where we were, but then what he did last year, I thought was enough evidence to be like, oh shit, like, did we just screw up? Like, and then
it's true.
Right. And then not screw up, but like, did we just, get a little ahead of ourselves? And then, the cliche saying is you draft a quarterback when you don't need one. Right. And yeah, that was probably the smartest thing. But then you look at Tom Brady, what he's doing and his TB12 program, and the fact that he's an immobile quarterback and he's doing it
very immobile.
Where does Aaron Rodgers fit in that conversation? If he can win an MVP, just like Rodgers did last year at that age, what does that mean for other GMs to be like, maybe we should start changing our mindset of what we want to do for our long-term solution at that, the most important position on the field. So I just want to get your take on that as far as like how big of an impact would that mean if he does win that MVP?
Yeah, well, and you would have to imagine it would help Aaron Rodgers no matter what, because he's going to, either Mark Murphy or Brian Gutekunst or whoever he plays next year. I'm not speculating he's going anywhere, but he's going to be like, look, Tom Brady's, what is he, 43? He's going to be 44. Like, I'm going to be in that same boat. Eventually, he's going to lose his mobility. We already seen him tailor off a little bit.
Sure.
He does have a few rushing touchdowns this year. Let's give him some credit. But yeah, I mean, I think it helps Aaron Rodgers no matter what, especially at the end of his, going towards the end of his career. If he's going, like, he's like, look, get the people I want around me, at least some of them.
Exactly. Get me an offensive line and some, some toys on the side.
You've seen Randall Cobb. Now, obviously, the news broke this afternoon with Randall Cobb probably going to be out until the playoffs with that core injury. Lazard had it last year, and he was out for 7 weeks. So you got about 5 weeks or so until maybe if you get the bye, you could buy a little bit of more time. But you made a couple comments about Jordan Love. You made a couple comments about Aaron Rodgers and Sanjay all off season. That's all we heard. And if you turned on the Skip Baylesses or the Colin Cowherds, like you said, if you turned on local radio, wherever you may be, if you turned on Twitter and you scrolled on Twitter, and it's the dark web. I call it the dark web because it is the dark web for a reason. You saw general manager Brian Gutekunst get his face, his name, whatever you want to say, drag through the mud. And that is what brings me into my next topic. Is your Packers general manager, Brian Gutekunst, a top 3 NFL GM?
So I will say this. I don't really know all the names of all the GMs everywhere. I mean, I do. I mean, I know of them, and I obviously you can tell what direction certain teams go and what direction certain teams,
it's very you can figure it out.
But I also think it's one of those things where I also look at it from my perspective and I try not to keep, bias, in it because I'm a Packer fan, but based on what he had to deal with, through the offseason and, to keep himself at a steady head and just say, look, we're going to keep what we're doing. We're not going to change how we approach the, our draft and our free agency and our, and obviously his amazing relationship that he has with Russ Ball and how they, manipulate the cap. Mm-hmm. Yes, I do believe he is. I mean, as far as like what other GMs are doing around the, the NFL, as far as top 3, I don't, Chris Ballard and guys like that, obviously have constructed, great winning, rosters. They're also doing some great things too, but yes, I mean, it's just alone, swimming through the waters of a dramatic quarterback that is, I would argue, probably, the other half face of this NFL. I mean, I think Tom Brady is one side of the coin, and then probably Aaron Rodgers. I know people will probably say, Mahomes or something, but let's be honest. There is no more coverage bigger than the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers right now. And that is basically based on what has happened since February onwards, I guess technically April when the news, kind of broke, but it started in February. So I just think what he did to construct this roster, in the last 3 years, it's paying off. Now, yeah, there's a couple, blips, there's blips in the drafts. Not everybody's successful, but this last year, how much scrutiny he got for AJ Dillon and Jordan Love and Josiah DeGuara and some of the other players. I mean, even like a John Runyon, where people are like, okay, he's a name that I know because of, his dad, but is he going to pan out, or is it any of these other? I mean, I think the trades, the free agency, the manipulation of the cap and how you sign some of these guys like, David Bakhtiari, like Kenny Clark, potentially now Ja, like what he could do with that. Hands, I mean, you might even say top 2, and maybe, who's better than him? Maybe, Bill Belichick. I don't know. But like, it's just, it is wild to think the roster that he has. And then now fans are asking, Rodgers, do you really want to leave for something better than this? Now, maybe it's not all up to him. Maybe it is up to Gutekunst. I don't know. But the grass isn't always greener somewhere else based on what you have in that locker room right now.
When this all first kicked off, I was on a different platform on a different show, and I lost my mind at people because I immediately took the side of Brian Gutekunst, and I've been a huge fan of his since he's taken over. You look at, and you're just talking about at the end of what you were saying is, where else are you going to go, Aaron Rodgers? Like if you're looking at Aaron Rodgers and you're talking to him, like where else are you going to go? People got to keep it real with yourself. In 2019, Aaron Rodgers didn't look very good. I know it was the first year under Matt LaFleur, 25 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. I mean, those are good numbers. They're not Aaron Rodgers numbers. It's not what we're used to seeing or what we were used to seeing. There was some talk of a decline there for Aaron Rodgers. And if you go back and look at 2017, 2018, and 2019, I know he was hurt in one of those years. I know it was the end of the McCarthy debacle. I know there were certain things that were out of maybe his control, but his numbers were going down a little bit. And when Jordan Love was picked, I didn't necessarily like the pick, but I understood the pick. I got it. Like, I get it. If you're looking at these teams right now and you're looking at, what we're used to being good teams, look at the New Orleans Saints, look at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Do not think they would love to have a prospect quarterback right now because they have no a plan at all. They have nothing. Big Ben's probably going to be done, and they're going to completely have to flip their team around. I know they got great players on the defense side of the ball, and TJ Watt, and they got Chase Claypool. That doesn't matter. If you don't have a plan in place for a quarterback, nothing matters. We've seen that. Chicago Bears have been dealing with it. The Detroit Lions have been dealing with it. So it really doesn't matter. When you're Brian Gutekunst and you're consistently drafting in the low to high 20s, I mean, for him to pick up Jair Alexander in one draft, Sanjay, Rashawn Gary and Darnell Savage.
Right.
I mean,
great draft, right?
And you see what Rashawn Gary is. Remember, people also forget Rashawn Gary was a prospect when he was drafted as well.
Right.
He was raw. He had the talent. He had the physical attributes, but he had nothing really developed yet while he was at Michigan. So he took a lot of flack for that pick. Now Rashawn Gary is arguably, outside of Zadarius Smith being injured, your best pass rusher and one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. You look at this year, you lose we already named all the players the Packers have lost. If you paid attention to one Packers game this year, you probably saw an injury or two. You go out and get a Rasul Douglas, pick him off of the Arizona Cardinals practice squad, and he has the game-winning interception, game-clinching interception against that same team in a primetime game on a short week. You look at Devondre Campbell, and I'm had Gary Ellerson on, former Packer and Badger, a couple weeks ago, and I said this, I know, Sanjay, when I say this, it sounds crazy. Devondre Campbell, you could, and again, I'm prefacing this, that it does sound crazy, could arguably be in the conversation for, most improved and MVP. I mean, he's been that good for the Packers. Sure. He may not be the league MVP.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but he could, and those are pickups. You talk about drafting Elton Jenkins. In my opinion, he's going to be a future Packer Hall of Famer, maybe NFL Hall of Famer. AJ Dillon, I mentioned the Jair Alexander, the Rashawn Gary, the Darnell Savage. I mean, he has done everything that you were supposed to do. His first year, he went out and changed the whole defense for the Packers with Adrian Amos, I'm sorry, not Rashawn Gary. Well, he drafted Rashawn Gary, but Zadarius and Preston Smith. I mean, he completely changed the atmosphere over on that defense, and he consistently does stuff that he gets a lot of flack for. And I understand that he was, the Jordan Love pick, and I understand that. Like, I get it. Aaron Rodgers won MVP after that Jordan Love pick. People think he won that. I think people get it confused. Like, do we maybe owe Brian Gutekunst a thank you? Did he give Aaron Rodgers a kick in the butt? Sure. I don't know. Maybe not. And then that's crazy talking. It's all hypothetical. But the fact of the matter is the backup quarterback position is also valuable. Like, it has value to it. We're seeing it this year. The guys are missing because of COVID. And if you don't have a backup quarterback, you're probably going, you never know. COVID's kicking everybody's butt in every league. So you never know who's going to play and who's not going to play. The Packers obviously had no plan at the backup quarterback position. They let Tim Boyle go. So again, I didn't care about the Jordan Love pick. I wasn't a fan of it. But I also didn't hate it. I understood it. And he continues to do things where he's tight with the cap and in the draft position to continue to make really good moves. He has solidified that offensive line from top to bottom. Yosh Nijman playing left tackle and shutting down the Los Angeles Rams. I mean, the guy, Elton Jenkins, we already talked about. I think Josh Myers. I know a lot of people wanted Creed Humphrey out of Oklahoma, and I think that was probably because of a name. I know he's doing great in Kansas City, but he does really good things, and he's only been in the GM for 3 years. And I think a lot of what Aaron Rodgers' issues were during that Ted Thompson era. And rest in peace for Ted. Well, but I think a lot of that was during that Ted Thompson era.
I just wanted to kind of preface, like, as far as like the GM thing and what he's doing is fine, but the Rodgers drama is basically his seat at the table. Now that could be an issue of Brian Gutekunst and Mark Murphy of understanding, hey, this guy has meant a lot. He's not asking to make moves. He's asking just to be like in the conversation with things, because how does Aaron Rodgers put it? Guys come to play for me or play with me. Yep. I got guys texting me, and the reason that you even have guys even interested in coming here is because of me. And I was on the side of Rodgers to the extent, before the idiocy happened, and you were trying to think of guys like Jake Kumro and some of the other. I mean, now I understood like Seawood and some of the other guys, and like if it's, Micah Hyde or, whoever, even Randall Cobb or Jordy, I get it. The respect thing. But then that's where Brian Gutekunst, in my opinion, understanding that he does have a Hall of Famer, someone that's going to be in the Ring of Honor, that maybe there should have been some sort of like the communication thing, right? That was the biggest thing right away in the beginning of the offseason into the preseason, was communication. And then all these beat writers were like, how's it going? Are you guys talking? Hey, we saw you guys smiling together in practice. What is that? Like, that was the biggest thing, right? Like, that was the issue. Not because of what he did and the roster constructed. That was the issue, was he just wanted to have a seat at the table. And I think he deserved it. I mean, he's definitely deserved it for what he's done. You don't still be sitting on, you're still not, a mark on the map without Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, Brett Favre started it. He's continuing it. So that, as far as the GM thing, there is an issue, but I hope that he's also solving that issue as this season has gone along. And I hope that at some point he's just like puts a piece of paper or a napkin and he pushes it to Aaron Rodgers and says, just tell me your number. So anyway.
And that's the thing, man. It's how the season ends is going to be indicative.
It will dictate that. Yes.
I think it's probably going to, but we're going to transition because this is Cut the BS. We are all sports, all Wisconsin. And finally, I think it's the first time, maybe the first show of the, what have I been here? 3 weeks, 4 weeks. We're talking about Bucks, baby, on Game On Wisconsin.
Hey,
Bucks basketball.
Hey, you better give them the respect. It is your world champion, Milwaukee.
Sanjay's got me, man. He's damn right. It is the world champion, Milwaukee Bucks. We are bringing some Bucks talk to Game On Wisconsin. You can look for Sanjay to join me. We probably at least once a month. We're going to dip into twice a month after the football season. The Bucks, Sanjay, 16-10, third right now in the Eastern Conference. They took a hard loss last night to the Miami Heat, 113-104. Here's a fun fact for you. Last night was the first loss that they have taken when the Big Three has played since July 8th of 2021. Only the first lost. They were 11-0 when the Big Three played going in for the whole season so far. They're obviously dropped a game last night. What are your thoughts real quick on this 26 games into this Bucs season?
Well, I'm going to tell you this right now, and I tweeted this out last night. The Miami Heat treat the Bucs like the Vikings treat the Packers, and that's their goddamn Super Bowl. And sorry, that's their goddamn Game 6 of the NBA.
Yeah.
So I hate the Miami Heat. I really do. And now I hate that I have to see PJ Tucker every time now, and maybe he's the Giannis stopper. I don't know what it is. I mean, he had an amazing game last night, and I hope that's just an anomaly. But anyway, as far as the season's concerned, it's such a cool, like, refreshing thing that you can wake up, or not even wake up. You can go to your work. You can work your 8, 9 hour, 10-hour shift. You can come home. You have your dinner. You kiss your wife, and you can, or your husband. Sorry, if you're a female and you like the Bucs, and you can turn on the TV and know that, hey, whatever happens, we're NBA champions. It doesn't matter. I got to see an NBA victory with the trophy at the end. All right, that's what it means. And so I think what it brings to this season, it's like it's a clarity thing, right? A clarity thing of knowing that, look, these games are going to be tough games to lose against a potential playoff, appearance, not appearance, but playoff matchup that we might see down in May. Maybe it's a game that you lose on a buzzer beater, or maybe you get blown out like we did in their home opener. Like, you never know what's going to happen in these regular season games. But then you realize that a lot of these things don't matter until we get to after Christmas or even into February, where these games start to matter a little bit. Now, don't get me wrong. It's not, we shouldn't be trying, but we should be at least trying to win the games that we should be winning, like against the Detroit Pistons or the Cavs or, the T-Wolves, games like that. But just this season overall has been, it's been an up and down team because you're kind of like, oh, when can we all fully be healthy? I just want to see this entire roster just being out there and show us what we got. I mean, we're the defending champ, like all that kind of stuff, right? And then we haven't seen it, so it's a waiting game. It's being patient. It's understanding that there is definitely a light at the end of the tunnel, and it may not be until April, but it will be a tunnel that we can get through. So that's my thought, at least so far in this season.
When about 2 summers ago, excuse me, I was talking with a good friend of mine, and he's a Bears fan. He's a Wisconsin sports outside of everything outside of football. And he was making fun of me after the Packers lost the NFC Championship game. And I told him, I said, it's all right, because I think the Bucs are closer than anybody else. I think I said we're gonna see a title here soon. We have to. And obviously that came to fruition 6 months later. And you're right. I took my daughter to a game Monday. I took her down to the court prior to the game. We looked up and we saw that banner. And if you've been to Pfizer Forum, you know what I'm talking about. It hits you differently in person and I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. When you look up and you see World Champions 2021 as Bucs fans, if you've been a Bucs fan for 5, 10, 15, 20 years or a lifetime, it's been a struggle. And you're absolutely right. When you can come home and you can turn on that Bucs game and you can, maybe you're doing something on a computer, you're on the phone, or you're playing with your kids. It's okay. It's December. We don't care about December games until it gets to springtime. And that's when basketball starts. It's refreshing, man. It's so refreshing to have, and I don't care what MVS says. And if you paid attention to the MVS show, and you can find that show every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Me and him on Tuesday went back and forth about Giannis. But nonetheless, it's just so great when it comes to basketball to have the best player in the game on our team. Not only is he on our team, he decided to sign the dotted line for 5 more years to stay in our team, in our city. And it's just refreshing to have it. You just want him to get healthy. That's it. I mean, that's what this team is right now. Like I said, 16-10, third in the Eastern Conference. Really, the Eastern Conference it's kind of mellowed out. The Bulls shot up really good at the beginning of the season. They've come down a little bit. The Nets have been up and down. They've, kind of leveled out a little bit. No team is really taking the reins like we're seeing in the Western Conference with the Golden State Warriors. I think they're like 21-4. So there really is no team in the East. You probably know it's going to come down to the Nets and Bucks in April, but with this team, you just want to see them get healthy. And I don't know about you. We need Brook Lopez, and I don't know what the back surgery is. I don't know what's going on with back surgeries in Wisconsin this year. First, Darius Smith. It just like nobody really knows
Christian
what happened with
Yelich and his back.
Christian Yelich and his back, and then all of a sudden, Brook Lopez plays a phenomenal game in the first game of the year, and then he's out, and it's back soreness.
He just wanted the ring, and he was like, I'm done.
The thing is, he's wearing that ring around, so he's not, making it easier on his back. But I think if this team, gets healthy, I don't think there's a team that can beat them. I know the Bulls are fun. I know people that are Bulls fans haven't had a good team in, I don't know, maybe a decade-ish. But as far as Eastern Conference, and I'll get your thoughts. I mean, it's the Bucks and Nets, and then it really is kind of, slim pickings from here on out.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, just based on the playoff teams last year, I mean, the Hawks are. I don't know what's happening with the Hawks right now.
I don't either.
And they are looking like that was an apparition to be in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah.
Philly is one of those teams where you're like, okay, they'll be there. I don't know if they'll be. I mean, they obviously went hard for the 1 seed. I don't know what's going to happen with Ben Simmons. Clearly, he's not going to be playing on that team. But I just don't know if they have the firepower to keep up with us or like a Nets, maybe even Miami. But then you look at Chicago. You're right. It's a fun story, just like the Knicks were a fun story. But then we saw what the Knicks were, right? Like we saw and what they are now. I mean, they're just trash. So, and then, the Bulls, I think they probably will make some noise. This Boston team has got some, I'm a little scared they're going to make a Dame move. I really am. I'm really scared that they're going to.
I don't think it will. Anywhere.
I don't think so either, because you said he really wants to stay, but at the same time, they don't want to pay him a 2-year extension, $50 million a year. I'll tell you right now, a new GM is not going to pay a 31-year-old, point guard when they want to rebuild. So I don't know about that, but so the Boston Celtics are obviously an interesting team because they could, if it's not the Dame move, maybe they make a different move. So it's a team that you still have to respect. Indiana, obviously they clearly are on the rebuild mode, so we can talk about a couple players that I actually have my eyes on. But then you look at Miami, right? And I think you saw last night what happened with the full strength Bucks, kind of ish, in the sense of the big three, and it was a task on the road against a Bam Adebayo-less, Jimmy Butler-less Miami Heat. So I think it's an interesting, granted it is the regular season and they choose to use us as their game 6 opponent apparently. So they love to beat us, but I just look at the standings and I'm like, okay, yes, like you mentioned, Brooklyn, is it going to be them down the stretch? I don't know, because honestly, that team is constructed like ass, in my opinion. I think it's just, hey, let's get the best players if we can, and then we'll just see if it all works out. I actually think Steve Nash is a bad coach. I just don't think he actually knows how to, construct a game plan to give them 4 quarters of full basketball. I think it's basically, he's like a Vogel to me in all honesty. He's just there and he's just going to ride the coattails of, probably the greatest shooter of all time. Or not greatest shooter, but maybe greatest scorer of all time. Steph Curry's got that one. But I just don't know, what it comes down to when it comes, at least with the seedings, where we want to be. Like, do we want to be, a top 3 seed? Do we want to be just, okay, let's just get in and we'll make the noise when we're all healthy? I don't know. Because obviously we'll start to see what teams are come, Christmas and obviously past the New Year's. We're going to really see the identity of a lot of these Eastern Conference teams. But I do like at least the way it's shaping, where it's like, I'm not scared of anybody. I really am not. I mean, even a KD and James Harden, I'm like, what? Okay. I mean, sure, you got you two, but is that really going to be the way you're going to go through 7 games between us? We saw how it worked last time. Now, granted, there were an injury there, but I don't know. I just don't know how anybody's really going to match up with us on paper, but we saw last night. I mean, the Miami Heat have players and they could make a move too. They've always been pretty aggressive during the trade deadline. They did a Victor Oladipo trade. So you never know.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know last night was one of those games where it was really close all game until the very very end. The Bucks had 2 days off in Miami, so I call that the South Beach flu. They probably
I love the beach. They're all getting
they
all
probably
the nice, gourmet meals, right?
6 degrees when they left Milwaukee, and it's like probably 80 degrees on there, so they're probably had a little bit of fun. But you're going to get that from the Miami Heat, especially right now. My thing is, you got a 34-year-old Jimmy Butler, you have a 36-year-old Kyle Lowry, and I think like a 35-year-old PJ Tucker. What are those going to look like in April and May and into June? I mean, Jimmy Butler's already missed a bunch of games. Bam Adebayo's obviously undergone thumb surgery, so he's going to be probably back at the end of January. I just don't know if a team like Miami, and like you said, gave it their all last night, didn't have their best players. They beat the Milwaukee Bucks. But a week prior to that, the Bucks beat them by 40 without Giannis. So, it kind of goes the other way. You're probably going to see them in the playoffs along with Chicago and the Wizards, maybe. I don't know. They've
that's a weird one for me too.
Yeah, they've kind of surprised, The thing about it is the Bucks just have to maintain, in my opinion, where they're at. Finish within the top 3-4 seeds. You don't need to get the number 1 overall seed. We saw that last year. Obviously, it's not necessary to win a championship. It makes it easier. Brooklyn doesn't have home court advantage. They just don't. So it's not necessarily a must, in my opinion. The thing is just get healthy. I want to see Dante DiVincenzo back. When I was at the game with my daughter, we were on the floor during warmups, and he looked great. I mean, I don't know. He was assigned to the hurt, and then like 4 hours later, he was retracted back. So I don't know what that means. And Mike Budenholzer, when Eric Name of The Athletic asked him that question, he was kind of very vague about it. He said he's just give him coach's talk. He's got to do the things to get back, and he's making progress and blah, 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 blah. You're going to see a lot of, time management here. Throughout the load management throughout the season. Giannis obviously is going to play, spurts. He's going to sit for games. Right now, 27 and 11 averages per game, with 5.5 assists per game. That's perfect. When you lose a Brook Lopez, I don't think people realize the impact it has on your team. On an offensive side of the ball, where he averages 12 points a game, but more importantly, he's arguably the best interior defender in the NBA. Now, you could throw DeAndre Ayton up there. You could even throw probably Giannis in there. Giannis is all around defender, but maybe Bam Adebayo. But Miles Turner's okay. Yeah, Rudy Gobert. Brook Lopez is right there in that conversation. I mean, he averages 3 to 4 blocks per game. I mean, now you're inserting Bobby Portis into the 4. You're moving Giannis down to the 5. It kind of changes your defensive dynamics as well as your offensive dynamics. Usually Bobby's coming off the bench and giving you that energy with that second unit. So it kind of changes a whole lot of things. So I don't know. I know Michael Porter Jr. in Denver just had back surgery, and they ruled him out for the year already. We haven't seen that with Brook, and Brook's another weird injury where he was on Sharana's podcast and he said, I'm coming back. And then a week later had back surgery. And you were like, well, what the hell? Like, what happened? Kind of like when we were with the Zadarius Smith back injury, just kind of, I don't know, just happened out of the blue. But once this team gets healthy, obviously you added Wes Matthews. He's your 3-and-D guy. Grayson Allen has been just such a huge, big time addition for this Bucks team. He's scoring the ball, shooting the ball better than Steph Curry is. From a percentage and Kevin Durant. So, I mean, obviously he's not those two guys, but he's shooting the ball as well as they are. So, John Horst, like you said, the Miami Heat are aggressive. I think John Horst is going to be aggressive. Now, you mentioned it earlier. What are some names you're looking at if you're the Milwaukee Bucks? Let's say Brook doesn't come back till the May-ish. Who are you looking? Who do you think the Bucks could be looking at?
Well, I wanted to just touch on one real quick thing, and that was Wes Matthews. That was a head scratcher for me, just based on where the need was. I just thought, okay, I understand where there was, okay, let's just keep getting more shooting around Giannis on the wings, more defensive help. Maybe that's a insurance thing on the DiVincenzo if he's traded or whatever happens with that. I just don't see him as he doesn't he has no ball control. He's not bringing up the ball. He's not facilitating the offense. And I don't know what they're really enjoying out of George Hill. I know he's obviously injured right now, but like they haven't gotten exactly what they possibly wanted from George Hill. He's had a couple good games, but like his like, I guess, fluidity, I guess, with the offense isn't where I thought it was probably going to be as far as like, a court general, things like that. But again, I could be very wrong about that. I mean, at least from what I see him on the court, it just seems like his production just kind of dips. And I mean, he tries to facilitate a lot, but I don't know. We'll see on that. But I really was questioning a guard compared to a big. And honestly, my biggest move that I've been saying since basically October, when we found out that Brooke was hurt, was go get his brother. I mean, just go get Rolo in the sense of you get an aggressive big on the boards as far as height is concerned. Now he's not going to give you a lot offensively. That's fine,
right. You don't
but
need it.
you don't need it. I think it's a good it's a good reserve to come off the bench. I don't know what he's really going to achieve much in Orlando. I don't know what his price tag could be, but I highly doubt it's that expensive. I don't know where the money really lies. Obviously, the big thing that everybody's talking about is Miles Turner, and I get it. He's 25. He's a big. He's obviously not wanted. He's a guy that has his moments. I think he's had more bad moments, in my opinion, than he's had good. I know when he tries to be a shooter, he misses a lot. His field goal percentage is actually pretty bad. It's probably around 36%, I think it is. I forget what it is. I mean, he's just never been amazing, in my opinion. And I think his price tag is going to be kind of high, in the sense of like a DiVincenzo and something else, which I don't know what the value of DiVincenzo is right now. He hasn't played basketball. Last year, his value was super high. I actually kind of thought they were going to trade him at the halfway mark, but they didn't. They kept with it. They went and got PJ for basically a bag of chips, and they stuck with that roster. I do think there's a high ceiling, not high ceiling. I think there's a ceiling for DiVincenzo defensively and what he brings to, what he brings to the offense in the sense of he is a great slasher. He cuts to the basket. There's a lot of great through passes that he can give you, but I just don't know what his value right now is in the trade market. And it's good that he's hopefully going to come back this month where he can, up his value if he is the guy that they want to trade. I don't know what else you're going to really trade to get, another big if that's the route you go. But I do think a swing 4 is the need that we need as far as come to the trade deadline, because you just really don't have it. Rodney Hood is not really giving you the production that you possibly wanted. And Shemi, you don't really know how long he's going to be out for. And he also is not giving you the production that you thought, and he's not that big anyway. So that would be at least my outlook as far as, I mean, it's only early December, so we really don't know what the need will be. It could change with an injury, but yeah.
Yeah, no, those are good. Those are good names. Rojo is a good name because he knows the system, offensively and defensively. You don't really need to do a whole lot of defensively. Right. Miles Turner, I don't know if he would, even if Indiana would be willing to trade within the division, I don't think it's a good fit, because I think where Miles Turner in his head, he wants to be that guy.
Yeah, he does.
That featured guy, and he's not going to be. He may not be that good to be that guy. And
winning helps, though. Winning does help.
Winning helps.
I mean, when you go to a team that actually has a chance, a lot of those guys start changing their tune as far as what they will be willing to do. But you're right. I do agree with you.
You saw what it did for PJ Tucker when he left Houston and came to Milwaukee. I mean, he was all of a sudden he was healthy and he was ready to play.
Yeah, he was ready to go.
Yeah. What I think you're gonna see happen, and this is just me speaking. I'm not an NBA expert. Not smarter than anybody. Dante's a guy that you need on a championship team. I think he's the guy that does a lot of the little things that obviously Giannis, Chris Middleton, and Drew Holiday are not going to do. He's going to dive into the second row for the ball. He's going to, he's going to scrap. He's going to get those long rebounds. He's going to, like you said, he's going to have moments where he scores 10, 15, 20 points during games. And I think he's a guy that, is needed on a championship type team. The injury is just weird to me, Sanjay. I don't know. Like, I feel like he's been out for 8 months, and I don't know what it was a torn ligament, I think, in his foot. I don't I don't know what, unless he had a setback, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, I know
it's weird with basketball players, right?
It
like
is.
that's
It's
like
a little
that's
weird.
their
Yeah.
like golden like limb, right?
Yeah.
Like other than maybe their hand. I mean, it's I mean that and him especially because he's based off speed, right?
You're right. Yep.
His cuts, his
Yep.
his approach to the basket, like he drives, like that's his thing and that's his bread and butter. So it's weird with the injury of how long, but like at the same time too, I'd rather have him take as long as he needs to get back to whatever percent, because we don't know what percentage he's going to be back. I mean, what an injury like that could, either derail a guy's career or it can make him. I mean, look at D Rose. I mean,
That's a good
those
point.
knee injuries. Yeah. I mean, he was never the same. And then now he's kind of like, dipping back in the fountain of the youth a little bit. And he's starting to become that, not superstar, but, a really great player. Right. So I don't know what trajectory there's going to be with DiVincenzo, but I'd like to think that this foot thing has been a little bit more of a hey, I just I don't want to like risk anything, and maybe that's the extent of the longevity of it, I guess.
Yeah, and the Bucs medical staff is really good. I mean, they're kind of like the Packers, where they're super ultra conservative. They're not going to
and they don't tell us anything. They don't. The Bucs don't say crap about.
You have no.
Injuries.
All of a sudden, Brooke Lopez
really
is out. All of a sudden they're like, he's having surgery.
The media doesn't get to know.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. DiVincenzo. I mean, that was the other thing. That injury came in the first round last year. I mean, he's been out for a long time. And when you watch him on warmups now, again, I'm no medical expert or anything like that, but he looks like he always looks. I mean, he looked great he was doing a full set of warmups an hour prior to the game. So I don't know, but we're gonna play a little GM game here. We're gonna finish the show with a fun topic. I brought the question up to you a couple hours prior to the show, and you wanted to do the under 25 rule, and that is a good way to start. We're gonna pick one NBA star to start a franchise right now. You can't pick Michael Jordan or Larry Bird or go back, but right now, currently under 25. Now, again, if you've listened to the MBS show, you saw or you heard me and a Packers receiver argue, and it got heated because I take offense to Giannis slander, and he told me, Sanjay, that he's a one-dimensional player. Those are his words, not mine.
Well, yeah, okay.
And I said, obviously.
Okay. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, exactly. So we're gonna play. Obviously, if it was up to you and I, and it was under 20 or not under 25, we're probably taking Giannis. That's the obvious answer. That's the easiest answer. He's the best player in the game, I think, by far. But we're gonna go under 25. So all clearly throughout the NBA, GM, you're picking one guy under 25. Go for it.
So I'm going to say this right now. Yeah, I would always pick Giannis, not even just because of his like freakness. I mean, the human being himself. I mean, how lucky are we?
Seriously.
At first I thought it was Rodgers. Honestly, I thought the way that Rodgers conducted himself, I was like, oh, this guy's the guy. And I had like maybe a few athletes in my life that I just held to the highest standard. And it was like Tiger Woods. It was like Aaron Rodgers, and then it was now Giannis. And I took a step back on Tiger because that the adultery was kind of a big thing, and the drug problem, things like that. And then obviously the Rodgers stuff, now it's kind of been a little kooky. And now that I look at Giannis, and I'm just like, this is exactly what every NBA franchise wants.
Yep.
The heart, the grit, the fight, the love. That's who you start your franchise around. And obviously, yes, talent is obviously the biggest thing too. You want talent. But anyway, so yes, I'm glad that we at least know that. And that's not being biased. That should be everybody's mindset. Yeah. So the guy that gives you it on both ends of the floor. All right. That's what I want.
Yep.
So to give you your answer, I am going with Ja Morant. I think I was a point guard in high school, and I'm very, I shift towards point guards. And what he's like a little baby Giannis to me, in the sense of his effort, his enthusiasm, his charisma, his game, his swagger. Like he's on both ends of the court. Like he lifts up his teammates. I mean, he's in Memphis of all places, and yet he's making them relevant with Jaren Jackson. And I just love it, man. Like I've always said, I have a bet with a really close friend of mine. I said he will have the better career then Zion
Oh
Williamson.
yeah.
Mark it right now. And obviously
Yeah.
we're seeing the injuries. Obviously, I hate when things are about injuries because that shouldn't be it. You know, I feel like a guy should just be able to show you what he's got, you know, just like another guy, and then we'll see what we can get at the end. Obviously, injuries are hurting him right now, but John Morant to me is it. I think you start a franchise with the point guard. I'm not saying you can't start it with the big. I'm not trying to say that, but you know, I like a guy that can control the game himself and everything. All the offense feeds through him, and he gets to dictate where the ball is going and where and how we're going to actually win this game together. And then, yes, build all around him, of course, try to, and then we'll figure it all out in the end. Now, obviously, if you could have a big like Giannis or Embiid or whatever, that's great. But like, it's tough to find those guys that are long-term, right? I mean, how many big men do you see that are like, oh yeah, my legs and my knees are all going to be good for the rest of my life? You know, it's not that easy. Now, obviously, Ja just had a crippling injury that, you know, kind of kept him out now, but I'm going with Ja.
That's a good pick. And when that draft, I wasn't like I'm not a Duke hater, like a lot of people are. But like when
I can't now with Grayson,
gotta respect Grayson. If he's knocking down threes, I'll root for Duke. I don't care. You know, when that draft, like when you brought it up with Morant and Williamson, I said it right away, and I said I know Zion has been on Sports Center since like middle school and going up in high school. I said, but that doesn't translate to the NBA though. Like guys play defense, you know, not all of them, but a good chunk of them play good defense, and you can't play bully ball like you can at Duke. It's not the ACC. And Morant had the all around game, and I'm with you on that. I think was, if you watch basketball and you know basketball, you're probably like, yeah, John Morant's probably going to be better because he does more things better.
Right. Came from a small school, you know, like Wichita State. Like that's what you want. Like someone like deeply like hidden, right?
He reminds me a lot of Damian Lillard. The Weber State had it, you know, was overlooked because of the size and the athleticism, and John Morant's a great pick. I'm going to go kind of a similar route, not totally.
Ooh, okay.
I'm going to go Devin Booker. And
interesting. Yeah, that's a great pick, obviously.
Yeah. And when I looked it up, I was like, I hope he's under 25. He's 25. So we're
good. He's exactly 20. I was going to say, he's really on the borderline. Like, I think he turns 26 this year. So
Morant was my second one because I was actually torn between the two, because what I like in both of them is you know, it's an overused term in sports, but he has the killer instinct. You know, he has that Mamba mentality. He's going to go out. If he wants to drop 50, he's going to drop 50, you know, and obviously Devin Booker really, when you talk about one-dimensional, Devin Booker is probably more so one-dimensional than John Morant. I think John Morant's a better defender than Devin Booker, but Devin Booker is just a scorer. I mean, he's one of the more pure shooters, you know, outside of Steph and KD. Be Clay. Well, we'll see what happens when Clay comes back, but he's really pure shooters in the NBA. So I went with Devin Booker. Obviously, Giannis is going to be our overall selection. I don't think, you know, and I could be wrong here. I just don't know if we'll ever see what Giannis does on the offensive side of the ball, on the defensive side of the ball, often, you know, in the streets of Milwaukee and for the community and what he does. You're right. Like, he's my favorite athlete, and I'm 100% comfortable saying that. It used to be Aaron Rodgers. It was Christian Yelich. You know, what Giannis is just, he's so remarkable. So obviously that was the easy answer for all of us.
Shout out to LaMelo Ball. I really wanted to say him. I really did after watching
that game against Milwaukee. I
can't believe we forgot to say them as a playoff contender, because honestly, that team is
a good point.
Miles Bridges and him. That's a nasty little young court that they got there, and he is going to be something. I will tell you that right now. He will be something. He's past first.
Ben's dropping on the YouTube chat. He said MVS disagrees. He was on the show, and he tweeted at me the next day. He was happy I could hold my composure, because it got heated. You don't call Giannis one-dimensional.
No, never. I mean, I get what he was saying in the sense he's not a shooter, but like,
that's what he was saying. And I said, and then he tried telling me Kevin Durant plays defense, and I said, does he? Because I've never seen.
Want to know who's better three-point shooter in the NBA right now? AD or Giannis? It's Giannis.
I know, and that's what I told him. I said
AD's actually garbage right now.
I told him that. I said
is awful. So
thank you. I said that to him. I said, look, dude, yeah, don't call Gian. First off, nobody else is blocking DeAndre Ayton's alley-oop in the final.
He covers all positions.
That's not happening. Kevin Durant's not doing. LeBron's not as great as LeBron is. He's not making that block. So, and Ben also drops in. He also said the Bucks were struggling, and I bit my tongue a lot. I shout out to MVS. We had a fun conversation. It was a good time. But I told Jacob I was going to bed mad that night, and I did. So,
hey,
but
you don't disrespect the GOAT. I mean, okay, not the GOAT, but you don't respect the Greek Freak. All right, you don't disrespect him.
Couple more championships. You could argue. You can make that argument. I mean, he is one of only 3
line. Yeah, I saw the trajectory of Jordan, LeBron, and Giannis, or whatever that was, and he's right there at 27.
I'm just saying. I'm not saying he's better than Jordan. I'm just
no.
He has a chance to be.
Yeah. I mean,
he has a chance to be, but. Unfortunately, with the basketball talk, I feel like I could go on and on all night with you, and we could talk about Bucks. But that's all the time we're gonna have tonight. I know Thursday night football is kicking off. Well, not kicking off. It's in the second quarter probably right now, getting ready to go in the second quarter. But that is all we're gonna have. Sanjay, thank you, man. Thank you so much. If you guys aren't following him on Twitter, there is his Twitter handle. Follow him. Find him every single Monday night. He has real quick. The greatest intro video I have ever seen a podcast. If you know what I'm talking about, you probably agree with me. If you don't know what I'm talking about, jump over on the Game On Wisconsin YouTube. Follow them on Twitter. Check out that video. Check out that podcast every Monday night at 7 p.m. Him and Fred and Matt, and they do such a great job. But thank you, man. Thank you so much for coming on. Again, that's all, guys. Until next time, don't forget, wherever you get your podcasts, please subscribe. Apple, Google, Spotify, all that stuff. Follow us on social media at Game On WI. Until next time, that will do it. Sanjay, thank you.
Thank you for having me.